Hey guys, so we're coming back live with you. I know not many of you are necessarily going to catch this live, but you'll be able to catch this later on. And the lady that's with me today has driven. How far have you driven to be here?
2 hours.
2 hours to come to this small meeting here in where are we again?
Pawnee.
In Pawnee. Yeah, I've been all over this place. So she came up to me and she said, "Hey, would you sit down? And I'd like to talk to you about a few things that are going on, specifically in her area, affecting her nation." And so she said, "You know, you've got quite a lot of people out there that are interested in protecting the earth." So she wants to tell a little bit about the story. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley. Introduce yourself and let these guys know who you are.
Hatito, huisi wapani, heihani washte. My name is Ashley Nicole Mccray. I'm an enrolled member of the Absentee Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma. My mother is also Oglala and Sichangu Lakota. She comes from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I am a founder of an organization called Stop the All-American Plains Pipeline. We call ourselves No Plains Pipeline. We are actually battling a pipeline company that has extreme stakes in the state of Oklahoma and all throughout the nation, actually, and in Canada. So that's kind of why I'm here and wanted to talk today. My family has a long, deep history in the movement. My great-grandmother, she's Sichangu Lakota. Her name is Agnes White Buffalo Chief Lamont. She was known as Grandma Aim. And so since my great-grandmother's time, my grandmothers, my aunts, and all my family have been fighting this battle. They are actually at the occupation at Wounded Knee in 1973. My grandfather, Lawrence Buddy Lamont, was a U.S. veteran. He was the person who was shot and killed at the end of the occupation by federal marshals, and that his murder actually ended the occupation at Wounded Knee. They refused to give my great-grandmother his body back until they shut down the occupation. So out of respect for my grandmother and my family, AIM, the American Indian Movement, did decide to go ahead and step down. So that kind of is the history of where I come from. My grandmother relocated to the state of Oklahoma, and this is where I was born and raised in Shawnee, Oklahoma. We, as the Absentee Shawnee Tribe, and that's kind of where I'm speaking from today, as an Oklahoman, are facing a lot of environmental injustices, including environmental racism. As you may know or may not know, Oklahoma is home to 39 federally recognized tribes and over 60 tribes altogether. Of those tribes, only 3 are actually indigenous to the state of Oklahoma. So that means about 40 tribes or even more were forcibly removed from their homelands and forced and dumped into the state of Oklahoma. And we know that the history between indigeneity and the state of Oklahoma and oil goes back since statehood. We know that this place, Oklahoma, was supposed to be left alone as far as white settlement is concerned. By treaty rights, the people that were forced to be relocated into the state of Oklahoma through different death marches and trails of tears were promised that they would be left alone in the state of Oklahoma as long as the water runs and the sun shines. And but then of course they found oil, and so once they found oil, that's why we're called the Sooner State. We had boomers and Sooners who were asking to have these lands opened up so that they could settle it. So people from the east, once they did initiate the first Oklahoma land run, people from the east came and swarmed the state of Oklahoma and basically just came and squatted on the land. They didn't have a care or concern if indigenous people were around, and they made that their home. So that's actually the history of the state of Oklahoma. It's founded on forced relocation and removal, genocide, oil, and white settlement. So colonization is definitely at the root of all the problems that we are faced with here in the state of Oklahoma.
Wow. I mean, just thinking about that for a second, you know, these people have been pushed away from where they originally lived. They're then made to move to a different climate, a different area completely, different agriculture, different way of growing things. And then having been given that land is then discovered to have something that's important again and its resources yet again. So they're suffering the same fate. And that we're not talking about hundreds of years ago, we're talking about right now. So how old are you, Ashley, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 32 years old.
You're 32, I'm 38. So I mean, you know, there's been so many changes just in our lifetime, and it's not going in the right direction. It seems like these mistakes are being repeated again and again. And I know you specifically were talking about one pipeline and one oil company that's coming in and doing a lot of damage today. So people out there are very keen to be able to stand up and make a difference. So can you tell us specifically about that pipeline and what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you. Yeah, so the pipeline that we're fighting, the Plains All-American Pipeline, and I kind of want to back up, I guess, a little bit. I need to do this as an indigenous Indigenous way of telling a story that it does have a point at the end, I promise. So the Absentee Shawnee Tribe in particular, we were forcibly relocated from the Ohio River Valley, and my tribe, my band of the Shawnee Tribe, the Absentee Shawnees, we absented ourselves from the whole system of colonization, and we actually ran away to the state of Mexico, the nation of Mexico, and we petitioned the government to be underneath the Mexican government instead of the United States. Once Mexico lost its war for independence, the United States came in and relocated us again. So they took us from Mexico and dumped us into what is now known as Little Axe, Shawnee, the Norman area where the University of Oklahoma is. So fast forward a few years, or well, a few decades, the 1950s and 1960s, the state of Oklahoma decided to build a lake, Lake Thunderbird. And as we know, as Oklahomans know, there are no natural lakes in the state of Oklahoma. They're all man-made. So this land that they decided to build this lake on was actually Absentee Shawnee land. Even more so, it's actually an Absentee Shawnee burial ground that that Lake Thunderbird is sitting upon. And what happened is the state of Oklahoma came in and used eminent domain against these people in order to forcibly relocate them from their land so that they could build this lake. My great-grandfather, Arthur Sloat, was actually one of those people, about 40 different Absentee Shawnee families that were involved in these eminent domain cases. He was removed from his land, made to sell his land for very cheap, like $1 an acre, and he was actually homeless for quite a while. He had to live on the tribal headquarters, and then he was able to get enough revenue to create a homestead basically in Arkansas. So he was very, very far removed from everything that he had known, from his people, from his language. The Absentee Shawnee are very traditional people, so he was removed from his culture and his people. He was removed all the way to East Oklahoma. But even more than that, this is very recent history, as you say. It's not something that happened so long ago that the people who experienced or endured these hardships are gone. The fact of the matter is, it happened just a few decades ago. So this historical trauma, I very much I'm faced with it every day because I saw exactly how it played out. One of my Absentee Shawnee aunts was telling me that when she was a young girl, she actually remembers her father picking them all up early in the morning, packing them into the truck, and driving down to the site where they were building the dam in the lake. And as they were down there, the state workers were actually digging up bodies of Absentee Shawnees, including one of my own relatives. And he said, children, I wanted you to bring you down here so that I could show you how the state of Oklahoma treats our people with dignity and respect. And so I have different stories from many different elders who can very vividly remember these state workers digging up these bodies. I worked in the archives at the Absentee Shawnee Tribe. I'm actually was a historian for my Cultural Preservation Center. And through these archives and through the records that I had found, there are different stories about what they did with these bodies. Possibly they left them there and they just went ahead and put the lake over it. And they may have also dug up all these bodies and put them into a mass grave, but they certainly didn't afford them any sort of respect as far as individual burials go. So they're either in a mass grave or they're still there, and everybody in the city of Norman, Moore, Oklahoma City, Midwest City is drinking the water off my dead ancestors' bodies. But even more than that, this pipeline that we're fighting, the Red River 2 pipeline, and that's just one of their projects, and also the Diamond pipeline, which is going to go from Cushing through Arkansas into Tennessee and intersect the Trail of Tears. Well, the first project, the Red River 1 project, actually goes underneath Lake Thunderbird. So yeah. And that pipeline is over 70 years old. They actually just replaced it about a year ago. Well, the second project has been rerouted several different times, and it's obviously a very clear-cut case of environmental racism. At first, it was scheduled to go through an affluent community in Little Axe, but of course, they're white people. They have revenue, so they're able to fight this company. And through their fight, through their activism, and through litigation, they're actually able to have it rerouted. So now that it's rerouted, it's actually going through Absentee Shawnee lands, and the people that live around that area are actually poor farmers who don't have any way to fight this company. Since we've started our fight, we've actually had a lot of people come forward. We have actually helped represent people in litigation. We have a gentleman, a private landowner who is non-native, whose land is in the path of the pipeline. His name is Matthew Day. Well, we've helped him with his litigation, and Mr. Day actually has had a personal problem with the pipeline company because they actually sent process servers to his land armed. And Mr. Day actually had to unarm this process server. And after that happened, Mr. Day was actually brought to court by the pipeline company for assault and battery, and endangering a life. And we actually have these records on our webpage, which is Stop the All-American Pipeline. Plains All-American Pipeline. You can go onto Facebook and get more information about that there.
So you have a just to give that webpage again. What's the webpage?
It's Stop the All-American Plains Pipeline.
So if someone can put that into the comments, it's Stop the All-American Plains Pipeline.com.
It's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook, so just search for that on Facebook and you'll find that. Do you have a website at all yet?
No, we don't have a website yet.
Okay, cool. That's all coming. And maybe someone out there is a good website designer who would like to help Ashley bring this together, because she's obviously got a huge amount of knowledge. And just seeing some of these comments that are coming through here about how terrible this is, again, it's really, you can sit at home and you can watch this and you can see this and you can just take it as a piece of information. Or you can choose to take this piece of information and actually do something with it, because the easy thing's to sit on the couch, see it on the computer, and think someone else is going to do something about it. But really, it's you guys out there that can do something about it. You're the ones who can pick up the phone who sat at home. You're the ones who can send the emails out to the senators. You're the people that can stand up and say, no, this isn't right. But you need to do that, and everyone needs to do that. So it's great us sharing this information and learning this information. But we're only two people, and I can only be in one place at one time. And today I've had about 6 or 7 people come up to me and say, hey, Kevin, we really need to shed light on this, shed light on this. This is happening everywhere. So what we need is everyone out there to be making these calls, because if we start to get heard and raise our voices, we're going to be able to make a difference. So sorry to interrupt you.
No. Exactly. And I think that's really important that people realize the uphill battle that we face here in the state of Oklahoma. There are no regulations on any oil companies or the industry whatsoever. So any project that they create through the state of Oklahoma, it doesn't matter if they break or anything. There's nothing that they're going to do. They're not responsible for anything. In the state of Oklahoma, it's actually illegal to ban fracking. Our governor actually declared October 13 National Oilfield Prayer Day to pray for all the people who work in the oil field and for the energy industries. And it's scary because.
So I'm laughing at the absurdity of that. I don't mean to be offensive by laughing, but that is just the most absurd thing. I mean,
and it's terrifying because and I think that people are really going to start turning their eyes and their attention to the state of Oklahoma, because President-elect Donald Trump is actually installing all of these people who are controlling the state of Oklahoma in his cabinet. So we're going to have Mary Fallon, our governor, who asks us to pray for the oil and who is fighting all of these sovereign nations within the state of Oklahoma. They're putting her in charge of all Indian land. And we know that President Trump wants to privatize our land. So we already know how that's going. And then Scott Pruitt, we know how this is going. And then the university that I go to, the University of Oklahoma, I'm a PhD student there. The president of our university, David L. Boren, who is a former state senator for the state of Oklahoma, is actually really in bed with these oil companies. So as you may have heard earlier, he was actually responsible for covering up the research that linked fracking to earthquakes, to prove that earthquakes in the state of Oklahoma are actually man-made, and there's something that we can do to stop it. So knowing that he's on the board, sits on the board of Continental Resources and is connected to these different pipelines, I think it's really important that people stand up and ask people like President Boren to divest or to step down from the presidency at the University of Oklahoma, and really put pressure on our legislatures, because they're doing whatever they want as far as oil goes, because there are no regulations. Nobody is stepping up. The people in the state of Oklahoma, because oil has been so deeply embedded in our state's history since before we became a state, people in Oklahoma are so acclimated to oil culture. People are used to pipelines and fracking wells popping up in their front yard, quite literally popping up in their front yard, because it's something that they were born seeing. So we really have a huge uphill battle here in the state of Oklahoma. As I said, and as I say many times, I think that what happened at Dakota Access, that Standing Rock, all the people who went up there, my family has a permanent camp, the White Buffalo Chief Camp. And I think it's a beautiful thing what's going on there, and the unity that and attention to Indigenous issues that it has spurred. But I think that it's really important to realize that even if we do defeat Dakota Access, that's just one tendril on the head of this Medusa. Oklahoma is home to the pipeline crossroads of the world. more pipelines intersect through the state of Oklahoma than anywhere else in the nation. We are home to more earthquakes than anywhere else in the nation now, more than California. And in 2009, we weren't even having earthquakes. So this is really scary. All of these things put together is really, really terrifying. So just knowing the huge uphill battle that we have here in the pipeline crossroads of the world, I really want to say that this is the head of the Medusa. This is the belly of the beast. It's terrifying. We have people from the pipeline companies coming out to people's property with guns, bullying them into signing these leases, into giving up their land, and it's really scary because we're only so many people. I work with No Plains Pipeline, but we also work with the American Indian Movement, Indian Territory, as well as Bold, Oklahoma, and we're also meeting with the people in Arkansas to stop the Diamond Pipeline. But we need more people. We need more people to stand up and care. We need people we need the Red Warrior Camp. We need you to come to Oklahoma. We need all these people here. This is the belly of the beast. Dakota Access, that was just, a way of easing into the battle, I say, because Oklahoma is the wild, wild west. And we are still faced with the same problems that have been affecting people for hundreds of years that you may see in your history books and think is so absurd. That's our actual reality, everyday reality. And it makes it even more complicated because a lot of our tribal nations are actually benefiting from these oil leases. So where the Diamond Pipeline does intersect the Trail of Tears, which is significant to the Muskogee Creek Nation, the Seminole Nation, and the Cherokee Nation, we know that the Cherokee Nations, their governor, Bill Baker, has applauded Mary Fallon for the wonderful work she's done for the Indigenous people. And we know that the Creek Nation, all of their council members, approved these pipelines to come through their lands. So we really need tribal nations to actually step up and be leaders. Show us what sovereignty is. If there isn't sovereignty in the state of Oklahoma, which is home to 39 federally recognized sovereign nations, then there can be no sovereignty for anybody. And I think that is something that we really need to recognize, to organize around. My group is doing a lot of organizing within the next few weeks and few days. We will have several different meetings, different events, just doing our best to have public forums and ways to reach out to the people of Oklahoma. But I can't express how dire the situation is, how urgent the situation is, especially for the people outside of Oklahoma. We need you here, we need you to care, and we need you to realize that, the things that there might be a flyover state, it might not be a place that people want to come, but the things that are happening in Oklahoma right now are going to happen all over the nation once Donald Trump takes presidency.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you pulling me to one side to do this because I'm learning a lot here as well, and you're a very, very eloquent speaker, and you have a lot of knowledge, which is fantastic because that's what people out there need to hear. So what can people out here do? What are you asking these people that are watching right now, apart from everyone, the 114 people watching right now, to hit that share button so more people can see it? What else can we ask them to do?
We need bodies, we need people, we need support. So we need people to go onto our page and to like our page and follow our page. We do put out regular direct action calls. In Norman, in the city of Norman especially, we've been doing a lot of organizing. We shut down City Hall. We've gone onto the easement. We've done a lot of different things, but it's scary here because we can get in so much trouble and there's so much at stake, like our lives, like the people actually have guns and they will shoot us. So we need people who have it in their heart, who have the spirit, who have the prayer, and who have the strength and the bravery to come to Oklahoma, to reach out to any of us, McCasey, Horonek. You can reach out to Bold, Oklahoma. You can contact our page directly. We have probably about 12 administrators, so people are constantly around the clock able to answer your messages. We need people that are willing to come to the state of Oklahoma if we have an encampment, and we need people that are willing to share this information and make sure that the nation knows what's going on in the state of Oklahoma and knows what's happening to the Indigenous people here and knows that it isn't just in the history books, that is happening to me today, right now, and it can't go on. So. And
what's that page one more time, because people are asking for it in the comments?
Okay, it's Stop the All-American Plains Pipeline, and you can find that on Facebook.
If anyone can find that group and post the link in the comments, that would be great. If you guys are all 117, 120 that are watching right now, if you can all join that group, because the more people that see and become part of it, and then it goes on your Facebook and other people see it and they start asking questions, because we can start asking those questions and then people will start coming here to make a difference. So I'm going to ask you guys to join us again later. We're going to be at Cushing's. I'm going to hopefully be able to show you some of the area there and show you, because that's the where all the pipelines in America cross. So it's going to be something really quite unbelievable to see. And then tomorrow we're going to be back again at midday with Erin Brockovich again speaking in Stillwater. So guys, if you can keep joining these live feeds and sharing these live feeds so we can get the message out. And I've no idea who I'm going to meet tonight and who I'm going to meet tomorrow, but I guarantee there'll be someone else who comes up to me and says, hey, we've got this issue right here that we need to talk about. So guys, you being the audience out there is crucial, but sharing it and making sure other people see it is what you can do. If you can't come here, okay, but you can all share it and you can all talk about it.
And I guess I just have one last thing to say. With the uptick of earthquakes related to fracking and the fact that we do have all of these pipelines intersecting through the state of Oklahoma, you can't even see Oklahoma on a map of pipelines. I'm scared. I'm scared of what's going to happen here. Oklahoma is facing an environmental disaster of unheard proportions. We're scheduled for a 7.0 magnitude earthquake here in the state of Oklahoma, according to these scientists who are studying this, and with the fact that these pipelines routinely spill and routinely break and are routinely not up to quality. It's just a matter of not if but when these pipelines blast all over the state. I don't even know what's going to happen to the people and the life that is here.
I mean, you heard earlier with Mccray that the storage for the petroleum's allowed a 3% leak rate. That's 3%, and the damage that it's doing to the water already here, and it's going into the groundwater. Can you imagine if one of these pipelines, and when it bursts, because they're only welded, and you see what these 5.0 earthquakes were doing to buildings, pillars on buildings, and people's ceilings that are cracking in Kansas. Not here where we are in Oklahoma. There were people here today from Kansas, and when I got my hair cut the other day, I was talking to the barber in Wichita, Kansas, who said, we feel those earthquakes there. It's scary. It's the first time in my life, and he grew up in Florida, and he said, it was scary. I was in my bedroom and things were shaking. That isn't right, guys. And that's what we're doing to Mother Earth by raping her. So the black snake, as someone asked what that is the other day, the black snake is the oil. And maybe you can explain why it's called the black snake.
Well, I think the indigenous people like to call it the black snake for many different reasons, but because it is harming and it is evil and it is infecting Mother Earth. My Lakota people, we call the earth Unchimaka. That is our grandmother. This is a living thing. It's not just a literal figurative metaphor. This is living life. And what these pipelines are doing to our grandmother, which is rape, it is directly connected to the rape of our women. We know that American Indian women, indigenous women, are more likely to be sexually assaulted than any other woman on the face of the earth. We know that 1 in 3 of us will be sexually assaulted. And I think it's really important that we do bring this into the conversation, that the sexual assault and the missing and murdered indigenous women and girls is directly affected to what is happening to Unchimaka, to the rape of Mother Earth. So the rape of indigenous women is directly related to the rape of Unchimaka. And we know, and we see that here in the state of Oklahoma, where we do have missing and murdered indigenous women who do go missing because of these man camps that are all over the state. And I think that it is really important that we do defeat this black snake. That way that we don't have any more destruction and degradation to Unchimaka, so that she can heal herself. And that way that she can nurture and sustain us. Not just indigenous people, but all humanity. We all need water to drink.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ashley. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks, guys, for watching. And we'll be back later. We got to run to Cushing's because I think it's 2 hours away and we've got 2.5 hours to get there. So take care. Thanks so much.
Yahweh.